Now, there's this movie that came out a couple years ago called Whiplash, and I think it's the quintessential film for why perfectionism is such a destructive thing. The main character is an underdog drummer who's a student at one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. And an enthusiastic conductor played by J.K. Simmons asked the student to join his band so that way they can compete in some national jazz competitions. The problem being is that the conductor is an absolute nutcase.
Start counting.
5, 6, 7.
In 4, damn it! Look at me!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Now, are you a rusher? Or are you a dragger? Or are you gonna be on my f***ing time?
I'm gonna be on your time.
A less determined person would have quit there and then, but the student persisted and earned himself a spot in the band. Over the course of the film, he almost dies, he risks his sanity and throws away a meaningful relationship. Now, there is an argument to be made that this type of sacrifice is worth it. It's these type of miserable moments that define us as human beings. Now, I will say that a lot of what makes life worth living is this idea that we've got people that we love, we've also got the ability to take care of our mental health. But that being said, this idea of perfectionism is something that tends to put us off our goals. Just to name a couple of examples, like what's the point of writing if you've only got 20 minutes? What's the point of doing a workout if you've only got half an hour? Now, generally speaking, and I know a lot of people that do this, is that people only tend to do things if the conditions are all perfect. If the stars all align, they've got the money to do it, they've got the time, they've got the perfect desktop, they've got the right camera. And these are a lot of intentional roadblocks that people set up for themselves. And it's easy to understand why. The path of least resistance is the easiest thing to do. At the University of Florida, there was this professor that did this experiment with his photography students. He created 2 groups. One was a quality group, one was a quantity group. Each group was being graded on their assignment for their pictures. The quality group were only allowed to submit 1 picture. The quantity group had to get at least 100 pictures for an A, 90 pictures for a B, then 80 pictures for a C, so on and so on. You get the idea. And these could be any pictures that had to be taken. Obviously, they're photography students, so they had to compose the pictures, light them well, do color grading. What was actually really interesting is that the quantity group produced better work than the quality group. The quality group only had 1 picture they had to submit and had tons more time to actually focus on this than the quantity group. I think an element that was not considered was the fact the quantity group, because they were taking up to 100 pictures for their grades, they would have more time to fine-tune and refine their methods than the quality group, which only had 1 picture that they could pretty much get right. All that time, all that energy just for 1 picture, that was just painfully average. And because of the fact the quantity group were able to take more pictures, they were able to experiment more. This is something that the quality group could not do. Every picture that the quantity group were taking, they were getting better and better, crafting new techniques and methods. Now, a bit of a hot take, when I was younger, I used to be very unconfident when it came down to chatting with girls or people that I didn't know. And I think what this came down to was the fact that when I'd be out and about with my mates, I'd always be expecting girls to make the first move, or if I was gonna make a move on them, it'd have to be the perfect opportunity. Like, I'd have to have the perfect line, the perfect joke, have a confident way to introduce myself. And even nowadays, there might be days where I don't feel that confident, but I generally found that the best thing that helped me out was just not to wait, to just throw yourself in the deep end. And sure, you might come across a little bit awkward. Maybe you might not be everyone's cup of tea. But the thing is that you never know the outcome of that conversation had you never spoke to them in the first place. And I think that's what a lot of us get trapped into, is that we feel like we have to wait for the perfect opportunity, for everything to make sense before we make our first move. The hardest thing with anything is just starting. Once you start, it becomes a lot easier. The thing is with perfectionism, it just becomes a waiting game. And honestly, no one gets anywhere by waiting. It just delays the outcome that you desperately want. And this is every time that you stall, every time that you make excuses. And this is something that I even relate to with my first YouTube video. I hadn't made YouTube videos before. I made such a fuss filming the thing and such a massive effort editing it and writing it and trying to make it seem as perfect as possible. Because I had told everyone that I was doing YouTube videos, it became this massive pressure that I was putting onto myself. And this is something that continued onto my next couple of YouTube videos. To be fair, is that people actually thought the videos that I made were quite decent. They appreciated the effort I made making the things, even though I didn't have the experience yet. And it was this insecure perfectionist mindset that I felt that I had to be some professional filmmaker right off the bat and be able to hit the ground running. But that's the thing, is that you only know these things for experiencing them. Now, there's a really effective tool that I use in order to help motivate myself. All you have to do is just set a time for 20 minutes. Whatever you want to do, just crack on and just wait for the timer to go off. And sometimes I'll just zone out in whatever I'm doing, and that's actually quite a nice thing, because before you realize it, you might have done an entire page of writing. Even if it's not really good, you can always filter out and just edit it the next day when you've got a bit more of a fresh mind, and who knows, you might be able to remake it into something which is usable or a decent piece of work. But the thing is, we can always get into our own heads about how we are achieving certain things, and no journey is flawless. Even an Olympic athlete gets an injury during training, but sometimes some of the most accomplished content creators suffer from burnout. Again, it's not really the objective that is the most difficult thing, it's the way that we perceive it. We kind of perceive it as this impossible task, and it becomes so overwhelming to comprehend our goals sometimes. Sometimes it's good to go for a realistic version of yourself than this idealistic, like unachievable standard. That is what matters. Anyway, that's it for me. Peace out.